Hey everyone, this is the last video that I thought I'd share concerning the work we're going to be doing at Toolik Lake this summer. And since I won't be there until mid-July, and some of you will be there ahead of time, and you're probably also curious as to what we're doing, this might give you a better sense. You may recall that there are two primary things that I'm looking to achieve this summer, and I've been working on in the past, and that is to use LiDAR to get a lot more information about the nature of the vegetation and its response to the nutrient amendments that are in MAT 06, as they call it. And the other was to use drones to try to get higher resolution and larger extent in terms of the measurements of the properties of the vegetation. We have three drones which we'll be using. One is just an ordinary camera, which will be used to do structure from motion and make three-dimensional reconstructions of the vegetation. The other is the multispectral, which will produce the vegetation indices, the red edge and NDVI and so forth. And then the third is the thermal, which unfortunately did not come until a couple days ago, or last week. And so I only had a chance to play with it this weekend and get familiar with it. It's quite different from what I had before. A lot of advantages. It's very small and pretty straightforward to use. Some disadvantages, I think, is that it won't fly as long and has maybe slightly low resolution, but it's about a quarter of the size of the other one, and the batteries are easy to transport as opposed to the old batteries. So I'm looking forward to using it, and since the drones will be shipped before I arrive, and others might want to use them, I thought I'd just quickly send this video. We didn't get a chance to use this, of course, because we didn't have it when we practiced out at Lamont with Savannah, Jesse, Maddie, and Lily. Okay, so this is a picture of the thermal IR Mavic Pro. It's a very small drone, and you can see in the front of it, that's the thermal camera. It'll be pointing down. In fact, you never want to point it into the sun because it actually would destroy the sensor. And then on the top, that sort of a little hat is actually called the RTK hat. So it actually will keep track of where it is with centimeter precision, which will make stitching the images together to produce what's called an orthomosaic quite more successful. Now, you'll notice that the thermal infrared has a 640 by 512 bolimeter, or pixel if you want, resolution. And to me, that's startling. Of course, the military has much higher. But keep in mind that it's really quite low resolution compared to typical RGB or red, green, blue camera. So the red, green, blue camera that's mounted on this device, along with the thermal camera, for example, is 1280 by 1024 pixels. Thermal is low resolution. That's the main message, which means that analyzing it is a lot more difficult than the higher resolution RGB. Okay, so the drone will do as you've seen in the past. Pretty much you program where you want to go, and it does all of the estimates of how to fly and how many pictures to take and so forth. This is our house at Taylor Road, and I just flew over our property, and it actually estimated all of the different places it had to go. So each one of those dots represents where a picture was taken. Now in this case, two pictures, actually three pictures, but two pictures are being taken, which is the infrared and then the RGB. If we take a closer look and remove the tracks, you can see there's our house, there's the Tesla over there, and then I'm standing in front of it, and then that's the box, which is acting as the launch platform. This is the flower garden, our vegetable garden, both very, very tiny. That's a bench, That's a bird bath that doesn't have any water in it. Just to show you some of the items which will look different when we look under the thermal. This is the Taylor Road, and this is the porous driveway we had installed. I'm laughing because it cost $30K to build that thing, as opposed to what would have been $10K. So it's always more expensive to do the environmentally friendly thing. And then across from us is a hayfield. We have some woodland behind us that goes back quite a ways, around a couple of acres of land, I suppose. That's our neighbor. Okay, so if we go to the next picture, this is what it looks like in thermal infrared. Now, all of the images have been, there are hundreds of them, have been stitched together, as we sometimes say, or registered, if you use LiDAR terminology. And it produces, when flattened, this thing called an orthomosaic, which is what you'd use in GIS or in other sorts of software to actually do analyses. Now, it's monochrome. If you think about it, it's just the thermal infrared band. And in this case here, this dark band here is the forsythia bushes, which seem to be photosynthetically quite active. This is an older maple. This is a magnolia. Seems quite active because dark means that it is very cool. It's very cold. Here across the hayfield is quite heterogeneous. We have some places, which might be because there's water still there. It rained a couple days ago or a day ago. And then there are other areas which are fairly more moderate in temperature. The road is very hot. The cement apron that connects us to the road is very hot as well. The roof of the house, which is black tiles, of course, is very hot as well. And then some of the trees which are back here. It's hard to stitch together because they're low resolution pictures, but not bad actually. It was very, very hard to do this when I first started this a few years ago. Mostly it failed to stitch together the images, but the greater precision in flying and the high resolution has made the production of the orthomosaics, this is an orthomosaic, much more of a successful enterprise. Now, we don't usually like looking at things in black and white, and so very often we do this false coloring. This is called a fire. There are many different palettes you can use. I like this one. And here you can see yellow or white is very, very hot, so the roof is very, very hot. Here the road is very, very hot. The blue Tesla is pretty hot. I, of course, would be hot because I'm a hot person, so to speak. And then the driveway is the porous driveway. You can see it is actually cooler than a non-porous driveway. So we're doing our best with our Tesla and our porous driveway to make the world a better place. I'm sure we can see this in the global data. But then if we look into this a little further, you'll see that there are some problems with this. The main problem is that FLIR cameras tend to produce photos, not tend to, they all do, in which the radiometric data are actually hidden in a proprietary format for their images, which is called radiometric JPEG. And JPEG, you might be familiar with, is a very common compression format for photos. And so the problem with that is that once you actually stitch these things together, the thermal data is gone. So the FLIR cameras record in this proprietary radiometric JPEGs. Now, of course, the emphasis is on imagery, not thermal measures. If you're doing search and rescue, you're looking for a person or a dog that's lost. If you're looking for your enemy, you're looking for a hot body that you want to shoot or capture, I suppose. If you're hunting, you want to find the deer. So people use this mostly to look for stuff, not necessarily to measure the temperatures. But the temperature data are there. And so what's the solution? The solution is to transform all the photos into radiometric TIFFs. Now, TIFFs are multi-layered formats for images and quite commonly used in GIS and other applications. TIFF is a great in the sense that it will actually store the temperature data in a separate layer which you have access to from other sorts of information which is stored, such as the GPS coordinates and other data. So the use of, you have to then use a program used to be called Agisoft. It's called now Metashape to produce the orthomosaic, because if you use DJI's software, which is very cool, it's so easy to use because the drone will download to it and bingo, there's your image. But you need this other software package which can use the radiometric TIFFs and produce a orthomosaic that actually has the temperatures in it. And then you use ImageJ, which is an old but very powerful program which was produced by the government a long time ago along with others, and it's open access, and it's great. It's very primitive in a lot of its components, as a lot of open source software tends to be, but it really is designed for research. It really is designed to get data as opposed to produce images. It's used a lot by cell biologists and other people doing analyses of imagery in medical science, but we can use it for anything else. And it's free to download. So we can analyze the thermal data, and we can produce thermal data frames, which we can then put in R and do our statistics. So I'm going to show you which ImageJ is. I'm going to click out of this PowerPoint here, go to the desktop, and then we'll show you some of the images. Okay, so this here is the orthomosaic, which is made from the FLIR. Now it's nice and it looks pretty sharp, right? But that's actually because it's combined the radiometric data with photographic images, and it produces much crisper looking image than the thermographic data. Remember, the thermographic data is actually like a tenth of the resolution of what you'd get in the RGB. So if you look at this, actually up in the corner, this is what the menu looks like for Fiji, which is ImageJ, an implementation of ImageJ. And you can see that if I click on here, you'll notice that right here in the bottom of this, it'll show you the actual values. So at x equals 523 and y equals 930, we have a value of 70. Obviously, that's not temperature, because if you go up to the roof here, we've got measures in 230, right? So you might say, well, can't you just scale the temperature? But I have no idea what the highest temperature was, or what the lowest temperature was in this value. Now, if we do in Analyze, we can actually produce a histogram. And if you can see, this is actually showing you the values of all of the pixels. And you can see there are, 4 million pixels here. And, let's see, yep, 4 million pixels. And you can see that there's a bunch that are cool, and then there's a bunch which are hot. I love this kind of histogram because it really shows you this is the vegetated world. It's a much cooler world because of evapotranspiration and because of shading and other things. I mean, it's a little darker because the leaves have color, but nothing compared to infrastructure. And so this is kind of the modern world. When we have more and more infrastructure, we have more and more hot stuff in the in the environment. I'm oversimplifying, I know, for you thermal geeks out there, but still, that's an easy way to interpret it. But this is not useful to us because it's going from 0 to 255, which is quite normal for the number of bins that you would find in images that you analyze in ImageJ. We need to get temperatures. So if we go to a single photo, here's a single photo. Remember that edge of forsythia bushes? And then here's the flower garden, here's the neighbor, here's the road. This is Taylor Road. This is actually what you're getting out of the FLIR camera. Now you'll notice that again the values are going from 24 to almost to 200 and so forth. Again, if we do the histogram, you can see that we have the cool world, which is the vegetation. We have the infrastructure world. Much more infrastructure in this single photo. Remember, there are hundreds of photos. But you can see that, again, the scale is from 0 to 255, which is no way to really interpret that in terms of what the temperatures be, at least not easily. One can find a way to do it. However, if you go to this image here, this is the same image in TIFF. So this is now the radiometric TIFF, and this here is the JPEG, the proprietary JPEG. And if you look at it now, you'll see, if you watch this thing here, you'll see that we now actually have the temperatures, right? This is 32 degrees Celsius, pretty hot. You don't want to lie down on that for a long time. The bushes, on the other hand, are more like 19, 20, 18 degrees Celsius, much, much cooler. If you go to the vegetable garden, that little bench is about as hot as the asphalt road. But then what the flower gardens themselves are actually pretty cool, about 19 degrees. Here's a cement walkway in a couple of bushes. The bush again is around 20 degrees Celsius, and then the walkway is closer to 30 degrees. This roof here is also 35 degrees, pretty hot on that black roof. Anyway, this is what we want. If we convert all of these photos to these photos, you'll notice that there's lower resolution because this is not a hybrid of a photographic image and a thermal image. This is the raw thermal data. This is the raw temperatures. And you can see that it's a 640 by 512 pixels, but it's going to be the actual temperatures. And you can print this out as a text file and actually get the array, so you'd have the X, the Y, and then you'd have the temperature. All right, so let's see what happens when we do this. I have colored this just because we like to look at the colors. But it's just a false color. The temperatures are still there. And if you look now, this is the mosaic, and you can see that the temperatures are actually there. And look at the values, and you'll notice that the road is 31 to 32, 33 degrees. The hot roof is almost 37, 38, 39, 40. The porous driveway is closer to 25. The magnolia bush is 19 degrees Celsius. The tiny dogwood, which I say I'm going to retire under in another 20 years, I live that long. And then here's the forest. It has a lot of trouble stitching together things at the edge because there are no photos on the outside, but still a lot of useful information here. And again, if we do the histogram, you can see that we have now going from 10 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. There is the green world, a much cooler world, and there's the infrastructure world, a much hotter world. And in this particular image, it happens to be a lot of infrastructure. If we did it over the hayfield, we wouldn't see it that much. But you'll notice that now we could go and analyze this. So that's just super cool. It was taken me, a long time to finally get to the point where I think we're going to be pretty successful if the drone does not crash, in doing this. So what is it? What's my objective? My objective here is to go back to the MAT 06 plots, and imagine that this is the dream world. Though we have temperature down here going from 10 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. And this is the control, which would represent the current world. And then, we now add some fertilizer for the future world. And I'm imagining that that the temperature is actually getting cooler. Now, why is that? Why, you would want, do you think in the best of all worlds that, that adding fertilizer would lower diversity and that you would wind up having less mass and that you would wind up having, in a typical natural system. And it just would get worse and worse. But in fact, the diversity in these plots seems to be increasing with the fertilizer. And also the mass definitely seems to be increasing with the fertilizer. So I'm expecting the temperature of the different treatments to go in this direction. They're extremely exaggerated, but wouldn't it be nice if we could actually show that in the future that the vegetation may provide a cooler sort of cover over the soil than what we have today. Could be the other way around, but right now my preliminary analysis of the vegetation data, which we did in the class, suggests that diversity is going to actually be higher in the higher fertilizer treatments, and that the unless I did something backwards, I'll work it all out. So that's it for now. I thought now wanted to make sure that I had a video for the multispectral, a video for the thermal, and then the video for the LiDAR, and then we're set. Okay, thanks everybody. I look forward to being there and the help that everybody has been providing to make this happen, and especially the fact that MAT06 is out there. Such a great experiment with all these investigators. It's perfect for what I'm looking to do. Bye, everyone.